anything worth doing and anything like of value that, you know, scales to be something bigger, like it's not just peaches and cream the whole time. I mean, this is a super hot take that probably people are going to look at me like I'm a weirdo for, but I basically believe that like humans' whole purpose on being on planet Earth is to create AI.
Thank you so much for being here.
Of course, of course.
It's been a while. I'm like trying to get you on, so I'm excited that we actually got to make it happen.
Yeah, long time coming. Like you said, the timing's perfect for now, so I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was doing like all my research, and like even in the other interviews, you're like, photography is like a tenth of what I do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like how I know you. Like even when I message you, I put like all like the palm trees and everything.
Yeah.
But like especially now that time has passed, how do you describe like everything you're up to? Or like, yeah,
Totally.
I
No,
feel like it's like a long list.
no, it's a long list. I always I mean, I think of myself like as an artist first and then like a creative entrepreneur second. I don't limit my creativity to any like medium or industry. I've done a lot in a lot of different ones just because I live by the mantra like if I lose sleep over an idea, like I have to like get it out my head and pursue it, or at least attempt to. And fortunately, you know, as time passes, like I'm able to put the pieces together a lot easier than when I was younger. So if I could see something A to Z and, you know I'm able to put the pieces together and pursue it and give it a fair shot and I lose sleep over it, like that's literally my formula to then like pursue said creative idea or project or endeavor.
With photography, you kind of like fell into it though, right?
Yeah, for me, photography kind of just happened organically. I was doing social media. I was like a social media director for a menswear magazine called High Snobiety. And the magazine or the publication at the time was like pretty small. There was like probably less than 10 people working for it. And this was like in the very early stages of Instagram. And I was like their only Los Angeles correspondent. So they started asking me to go to events to cover some stuff for social, and that led into them giving me like a small little budget for a camera. And then I started to learn how to, you know, use the camera on like manual settings to just get better. And I kind of just fell in love with it and started to use it as a form of therapy at the time. It kind of just like took a world of its own after that. Once I started like sharing my images like publicly outside of what I was doing with High Snobiety, the world of photography kind of opened up for me, and I just kind of like fell in head first and just kind of went with the flow, working with like a lot of different brands and you know, shooting campaigns, working like directly with Fuji, having all my camera equipment, you know, sponsored and paid for, and just kind of just let everything like unfold, and just kind of that allowed me to meet new people and kind of build a network, which led into other creative endeavors outside of just personal photography for myself.
Was it, so it wasn't palm trees in the beginning?
It always was.
Oh, always was.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of like the common thread, and that's why I'm always gonna like never be bored of like using palm trees as my creative muse, because when I was trying to figure out like those settings outside of you know, these High Snobiety events that I would attend here in Los Angeles, I was actually just walking the beach trying to clear my mind shooting palm trees. So it was definitely like the first like subject. I've always been gravitated to shooting palm trees and shooting photography with still objects and objects of natures more than humans, just because I'm able to like characterize and like the object. Like as soon as I see something, like I already have like a process of just instantly basically building like a character background for said palm tree.
Interesting. I didn't, okay.
So I'm that's just part of my creative process. And yeah, it's always been like the thing I've been drawn to.
What's an example of like a character that like a palm tree character that you really like?
Yeah, no, there's, I mean, on my phone, I have like all these pins saved throughout Los Angeles of like favorite palm tree bunches and clusters that I've frequent and take photos of. But like, there's just some that like, you know, there'll be like 5 in a row and 5 in a row on one side and on the other side. And and I just like instantly think of like, it'll take me back to like basketball, playing 5-on-5. So like I imagine like these like two teams of palm trees, like you know, competing against each other or
They're
about
athletes,
to. And
yeah.
I always just like instinctually just kind of like put some random weird little quirky story to what I'm seeing, and it helps me analyze it a little bit better, and then it allows me to want to like shoot it. Like if I'm able to like just be like walking in a new native place and I see something and I put a story to it, that means I want to like photograph it.
Okay, that's how you can tell.
That's my meter from like, oh no, like if I'm automatically thinking of something completely absurd, like I should probably photograph it.
That's so funny. I don't think I've heard you talk about like that they kind of have like personalities. That's cool.
Yeah.
And in the beginning too, I was reading it was like the main, or maybe just kind of like what was getting reported, that it was like the intersection of like basketball and
Yeah.
palm trees. So is that still a thing?
Yeah, no, totally. I
Okay.
mean, those are basically like my two first loves. Like my first love was basketball, like growing up and playing you know, high school sports, and then sadly realizing that you're not athletic to become
That's
a
always
pro.
the saddest realization, like when that point finally like seeps in.
No, it's reality, and I think it's one that, you know, is a tough pill to swallow at the time because you're a kid and you're just ambitious. But at the same time, it's like real life is real, and it is what it is. But it doesn't mean that you can't achieve some of the goals just through different avenues and alternative ways. Like you said, the intersection of basketball and photography for me really came to a pinnacle when I was like on the court, like 2 feet in front of Kobe Bryant, taking his photos the last time he ever played like the Clippers. And it's like I didn't get there in that arena on that floor that close to Kobe by playing against him, but I got there through another avenue in another way. So yeah, I mean, I'm always gonna be inspired by those two. I'm always gonna, you know, automatically kind of blend the two in my creative process. And yeah, I mean, I'm just always gonna love them, you know?
I think that's like such a good point, because like a lot of people will have like a narrow focus on what they want to achieve and don't realize like if you kind of just like stay maybe even just close to your love for that thing,
Totally.
other things will come to fruition that are probably like much more in alignment with who you really are.
Yeah.
But like you're still getting to where you want it to go, just differently.
The more authentic you stay to yourself, and like the more you trust in your abilities and your vision and double down on with your actions, like, I mean, you can't really foresee where you're gonna be. You know, the doors could open up that you don't even know are there. So
Yeah.
I kind of have faith in that.
Do you think that moment was like a moment where you like really started to gain confidence to like trust your own intuition?
No, by then I already knew what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, I already knew what it was. I feel like you almost have to have that ability to trust your intuition to even be there. You know, you have to be already ready to kind of like be able to capture that moment. I learned at an early age to trust my intuition and like my ability to like just go in a direction even though I don't fully understand where it's going to lead me. Just knowing that taking a leap of faith in yourself and betting essentially on yourself is always the plan of action that I enjoy pursuing. And simply, I just hate wondering what if.
Yeah.
Like that shit eats me alive.
That's another concept like I heard you talk about. I'm like, that's such a great like thing to keep in mind, because I think we all have what ifs.
Yeah.
And we've just become, depending on the person, maybe like a little bit numb to that emotion. And like it depending on who you're around to, like maybe you're not used to seeing people execute on their dreams. So like the concept of having an itch and like it just being there forever and it may never be something you scratch is like common for a lot of people.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. I just learned at an early age, there was definitely like a pivotal moment in my life where I learned about this. And it was when I used to work at In-N-Out right after high school. And I worked there like my senior year and 2 years after. And I just didn't know what I was doing. Like all my friends went off to college. I was just, you know, doing my community college work because I didn't know where I was gonna go. I couldn't afford university. So at the time I was just like making ends meet, still in school, foot in, foot out, trying to understand what excites me, what am I passionate about? Because at the time I didn't know. Unfortunately and fortunately, like I broke my hand and I was out of work for 6 months, but I was like on paid leave. So I didn't have, for the first time in my life, I didn't have like the stress of like, how am I gonna get money? Though like I wasn't able to be fully mobile, I then was able to like take the time to breathe and understand what excites me the most. And at the time it was fashion and like streetwear. Like that was like, you know, the early like kind of like streetwear days, which excited me. I give a lot of that excitement to a clothing brand named LRG. It was started by this guy named Jonas, and the way they were going about it and scaling the brand was super cool and appealing to me. And I wanted to be a part of something similar. So in that interim of those 6 months where I had broken my hand, I just kind of was like, what's the closest clothing brand that I can get involved in that, you know, I think is cool. The brand messaging aligns with who I am as a person and I can contribute to. And I found a brand called Us Versus Them that was in my local town. And honestly, the timing couldn't be better. And ever since then, I kind of was just like, dude, anything that you feel in your gut is right, like just follow it. Just manifest it, fall into it, lean into it, all of it. And worst case scenario, you can always go back to where you left from.
Yeah,
And
back to where, yeah, worst case scenario, you are where you are now.
exactly. So I kind of just took that at the age of like 19 and never really looked back.
That's amazing.
And still, I'm just like, still figuring everything out, but I definitely have a strong conviction in my abilities and myself and who I am.
That's a good signal too that you mentioned, like you're just trying to figure out like what excites you. If somebody's like trying to figure out like not knowing what to do, it's like kind of just think about the things that you like get like a little extra energy when you think about.
No, you need to know what that is, because if you don't have that, like anything worth doing and anything like of value that, you know, scales to be something bigger, like it's not just peaches and cream the whole time. Like you have to have that extra amount of love for it, because when it gets tough, like you have to, you know, prevail through the toughness. And if you don't have that extra love, like you're just gonna be like, all right, on to the next thing. And that's actually what like the meter is. It's like, do you still love this? Do you still have the vision? Do you still have that enthusiasm and that passion? Because that's gonna carry you through the bullshit and the tough times that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard. Like we were having a conversation before about like the pursuit of like finances. Like you need to like support yourself. Like you can have like a really deep passion for an art form. And like, let's say like acting specifically, it's like other people are kind of in charge of like how much you progress in the space. So like, did you ever have a time in your life where you're like felt like you had to stick to something you didn't really love because of the finances or because somebody else had to give you a yes?
I think there's always a point where you have to like really evaluate where you are and where you want to be, because in order to evolve, change has to happen, and change isn't always convenient. You know, sometimes you have to let some things go, let some people go, let some situations go to fall into something better. And for me, though it was scary, I feel like in my photography career, there was definitely a point where it was almost like getting too influencery, and I was just like doing brand shit. And, you know, that's cool and all, but like the more brand things that you do, I feel like it kind of like, if you aren't matching it with enough artistic output that you're just creating with no monetary gain behind it, it starts to dilute it when you do. So for me personally, like I was making, you know, a good amount of income doing that stuff, but I simply just stopped one day and was like, it's not making me happy. It's not making me feel like, it's not putting my personal art in a higher stature than if I were to be doing this. And though I took like a bet on myself once again, kind of like cutting out like influencer kind of gigs and just doubling down on my personal art, like though it wasn't quite the immediate like overall success, but like that allowed me to then find success later on just my terms and with my art, with no other alternative motive, or like you said, someone over my shoulder telling me how to take a photo or
Right.
what subjects and creative to approach it as. And that freedom was just like another, you know, just another change. You know, I had to shed the thing that was feeding me to allow myself and my art to, I guess, like flourish on its own, which was super scary, but also I just knew it was time. Like there's always going to be somebody that the brands are going to want to work with that are younger, cheaper, and more appealing to what the audience is that they're trying to do. It's just like the youth is undefeated, and I think it's a beautiful thing. However, you know, no one can replace who you are as a creative or as a person as well. And I think it's important to like double down on your artistic ability and your vision.
It's interesting you say shed, because I feel like if you have that mindset, you know you're growing, but there's going to be a period where you're just kind of like
It's
bare.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, like you're just like out here, like you're so exposed.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, that's the only way to grow though. There's no shortcut to it, you know? It's not everything is going to be comfortable. You have to
Yeah.
be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, I think, sometimes to get to where you want to go.
It's funny how like topics you're thinking about like align. I'm like, oh, I think the other day I was watching something about animals, and the animals that like are stuck in their shell never grow.
Yeah,
Only the ones that can actually like release it and rebuild.
totally.
Yeah, I think
No,
I don't know.
it's a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's funny. But there's a lot of correlation. for
Yeah,
sure.
that time that was when you wanted to go into like fine art, right?
I kind of wanted to, yeah, take my approach and have my art live off of a digital realm. It was like the first time I started to release physical prints. And those did well, they sold out. And then that's when like galleries started to reach out to me and like, I feel like take me more serious. And then I had my first solo show in Milan with a pretty cool gallery called Plan X. They have a lot of cool like emerging different type of artists that they represent. And I did a solo show with them, as well as a group show with a gallery out of Boca Raton in Miami. I think it just kind of opened doors for me, just in a whole different world. But kind of like the theme of the story is like if you bet on yourself, like you might not know what's coming, but if you are willing to put up with like the turbulence and the exposure of feeling like you're having to start over or just being vulnerable, there might be something good on the other side. So I was willing to take that risk.
How would you even describe like the difference between what you were doing and fine art? Because I feel like sometimes people, if they're not like really familiar with a lot of art, they think fine art and they think like a very particular maybe type of painting or.
Totally. I think fine art is just a form of expression. Like anyone could be an artist. It's just, does it come from an authentic place? Like, did you make that because you were trying to express something, or did it just flow out of you? That's a lot different than, did you make this because you got a $10,000 check and they needed a campaign done by next week, featuring this kind of model that's this race that looks like this and has this appeal in this setting. Like, I think, obviously that is art too, but I think it comes from a different place when it becomes like fully authentic and a representation of who you are as a person, not as an employee or freelancer for a company.
Okay, I've never heard, like, is that like close to the definition? Like if you were to actually look up fine art definition.
I don't know.
That's like your own definition.
That's how
and it's
I
great.
interpret it.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret it. I don't really
I think that's really cool.
I think the first rule in art is there are no rules. So whatever the dictionary definition of
yeah, if we were to Google
of the fine artist is, I would be glad to rip it out and throw it away. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's just what you feel is right. It's a state of being. It's a state of flow, I think, more than anything. And once you achieve that state of flow and that being, there's two sides of putting out a piece of art. I feel like it's like the first half is what the producer or the artist is trying to produce and make, whether it's intentional or not. And the other half is how the viewer feels and how it moves them. And, you can only do the first half as an artist.
Very true. Okay, so I've noticed you say the word flow a lot.
Yeah.
How would you describe what that feels like? I think there's like a book too, potentially like relating to creativity, being in flow, a state of flow.
It's funny. It comes in waves. It really does. To be completely honest, for the first time in my life, the flow of creativity was cut off for me, and it was very scary. Like for my whole life, like from the age of I would say 19 to I'm 33 right now, so to the 31 and a half, 32, I like the flow was just like a faucet, and over recently, like just through current events in life, like it completely just shut off. And for the first time, it was scary. Like it was scary to not know what I want to make. It's scary to not know what I would love to make, what moves me, what I'm even trying to express. And just like up to recently, the faucet has been turned back on, and now like the storm is passing, and my creative is just evolved on like such a crazy level where it's like, yeah, I don't think there's nothing I can't do or create if I want to. I've done a lot. Like I've built furniture. I've worked in music and helped, musicians in their career achieve, some good success there. And just being able to be a part of teams too. Like there's different types of creative. It's crazy. And I think they all can help and contribute to letting things flow. But yeah, flow is extremely important, and it comes in waves. So I don't take it for granted at all. I used to, because I was like, oh, I'm a creative. I just is so intuitive with my emotions and what I'm trying to express. It's easy, but not anymore. Like I appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. It's a very beautiful feeling when you have a good idea, and I appreciate when they pop in my head, for sure.
It feels more like a gift now.
Yeah, no, I took it for granted. I'll never take it for granted again. It's scary when you don't have any ideas.
Do you think it was because you were going through a period of growth, so like who you were as a person was kind of shifting?
Who I was as a person, for sure. I think it's just like, a person isn't just one thing, right? It's like a culmination of every aspect, these crazy multitude of factors, and it just lined up where I was just kind of in a down mental state. I'm only human.
Right.
I have good days and bad days, but for a while I didn't have a good day, and my flow went away with that. And so, you have to like crawl your way out of it. There comes to a certain point where it's like, yo, I'm done having a bad day. Like, let's go have a good day. Let's work out. Let's eat healthy. Like, you have to find the other things that get your brain moving, or just completely stop so you could just let your body be present, and you build in other avenues. And then I think once you just start to overall heal, like, you can allow yourself to let the flow begin in a weird way.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of times creativity or like art is created through pain. So when you say like you were having bad days, you would almost think like, oh, that would be the upside. Like you could create.
And I've gone through that experience and have created directly as a result of going through something extremely painful. But this was like deeper and darker than that, where I was numb, where I didn't even want to do that. Like, it was a dark place.
And that's where the lesson comes in, where it's like, oh, that's like a part of the human experience. Like it could go to that point where I can't find potentially a light of just like creating something.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I was just numb. I was frozen. I was numb. I was shell shocked. I was just numb. So, I had never really experienced a heavy weight as heavy as that, and it froze me. And, as time moves on and you start to heal, you start to thaw out. And that isn't just like physically or emotionally, that's also creatively. They're all correlated. And, sometimes creativity flows, in the best times or the worst of times. But, in this particular instance for myself, I was just numb.
What's the first thing that got you excited after after that phase?
The first thing that got me excited after that phase was simply just having ideas. For me, like, I could just be sitting there and it just hits me like a waterfall. Like, it could be like AI, like new tools, new abilities to see things from A to Z, new environments. I don't really think there's any one thing that was just like, all right, I'm back. But there's definitely just a constant building of just putting myself out there to improve my mental health, my physical health. And I think that allowed me to just perceive the world that was around me in a better light again, which allowed me to just feel inspired, feel reinvigorated to create. Like, I'm still living, I'm still breathing, there's a bright future ahead, family's good, friends are doing good, everyone's healthy. Like, what do I really have to be somber about? Like, just pick myself up you fall on your face, but it's about how you pick yourself up.
I was gonna say, like, what are some ways that you can like tap back into flow, but you're naming them all as like gratitude, just like getting healthy, maybe even starting with your body, working out.
Yeah, treat yourself good, man. You deserve it. We've all been through a lot. Like just to even be, seeing the light of day. Like some friends weren't able to. So like just really just not taking shit for granted. And having to remind yourself sometimes.
So in the beginning, I asked you all the things you do. I feel like I cut you off. I'm like, wait a minute, there's so many things.
Yeah, I've done a
Yeah.
lot.
Okay, I'm gonna go into the furniture.
Okay, yeah.
Because I feel like that's a really unique space not a lot of people get into, especially if they're coming from photography or painting, which you also do, which I wanted to get into.
I mean, I've always had a passion for design. I think I fell in love with design and competition or composition like through photography. It just allowed me to view everything in a different lens with a different light, like just moving forward in life. And I've been on a mission to design everything that I could see, smell, taste, and touch. Sitting is pretty essential. And I want to
Do
be
it
able
every
to,
day.
yeah, exactly. So I want to be able to like kind of create the world of my dreams and like the environment of my dreams. So I've always had that inkling that I've always wanted to do it. But then I linked up with a friend who is an architect at a music festival. We just kind of ran into each other. We hadn't connected in a while. It had been like at least 5 years. So we kind of just reconnected through this passion of wanting to create and design a chair. And after 2.5, 3 years, we ended up doing it. It's been a fun process. We'll see what else we make, if anything. I kind of just like, I'm happy I made a chair.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
it's beautiful.
thank you.
And there's two types. There's one that's like very high end and one that's more affordable.
Yeah, and it's just like really is the same exact design, but we wanted to make two entry points. The only difference is really like the wood. A lot different woods are different prices. Ash is a lot cheaper than walnut, so there's like the price difference, as well as like the other finishings and brass and stuff. But yeah, furniture is one. What else have I done? With some good friends of mine, I had just this idea. I used to always wear like a phone charger around my neck. And like the homies were just like, dude, we should just make bracelets and necklaces that are phone chargers. So we did that, and we ended up getting like wholesale and did distribution. It was called Adapt Technology. I did that with like Nigel Houston, my friend Noah, and my friend Nathan. Another thing that I've been a part of and done has been selling like photo presets. Like, so basically like you could take a photo, completely have it raw, and then buy like our filter package. It was called Aesthetic Label, and we like basically collaborated with a bunch of well-known photographers at the time and basically sold a digital product for these digital filters for aspiring photographers, which was really cool. I thought it was like dope because when you're like kind of like first growing up in like the photography world, you might not know what your specific style is, but you know who you like. So it's a good like starting entry tool, I think, for a lot of people. People still to this day ask me about like, yo, when's the next pack? Like, are you guys gonna do something else? But yeah, that was one thing else I've done. I mean, NFTs and digital collectibles and like that whole world. That's been fun and good. Music, I've managed artists that have done pretty well. We performed at Rolling Loud in LA. That was cool. I'm getting into movies and screenplay writing and stuff like that, as well as just everything. I'm not limiting what I can do and not do. If I could see it and like the people that I'm building with have a similar vision and a passion, then I think like whatever we want to do, we can get done.
Mm-hmm. Even your Instagram, like the bio you have, it's like, it's simple, but I remember like I read it a few times over. I'm like, such like a powerful statement.
Thanks.
To just like not put any limits and like not put yourself in a box at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody because a lot of people are really good at honing in on something and like, there's nothing wrong with just honing in on one thing and putting one brick on top of one brick and then you obviously become an expert. But I don't know, for me, I can't get bored. Otherwise, I'll just move on to the next thing. It's like, I think it's called like shiny object syndrome.
It's like
However,
shamed.
yeah. However, I think, you know, everything I've ever done might have not always worked out like we wanted to, but I'd learned something from it. And, you know, I learned falling on my face and getting back up and then applying what I learned onto the next thing. So, you know, I learned by doing, I learned by applying, you know, things I've learned in life. And everyone's built different, but for me, that's how I'm built.
Yeah, it's like it used to be a narrative. I feel like when I was younger, like when I was in school and I was like maybe even like a teenager, like you had to start thinking about what you wanted to do with your
Yeah.
life because you had to like go into school and take a major.
Yeah.
So by the time you were like 20, they were like,
Totally.
well, what do you want to do forever? And
Yeah,
then I'm
it's
like, I
like how
don't
scary
know.
is
Yeah.
that? Like, yeah. I live every day like it's a unique day, you know,
Yeah.
for sure.
In terms of the furniture, why did it take 3 years? I feel like I said, I don't think a lot of people are like familiar with that space and maybe could have the dream of like, oh, I would love to design everything in my home one day or something
No,
like
for sure.
that.
I mean, for us, we were really particular on the ergonomics of the back and how like the lumbar is affected by everything. So like it was just a lot of trial and error and what we liked and didn't like and figuring out like literally just angles of like how the body is gonna sit on a chair. Like, I mean, anyone could go to Home Depot right now, buy like 5 slabs of wood and make a chair, but it's like, can this chair be, you know, here in 40 years? Like this one for sure could. Like, and that's how we built it, you know.
And you don't feel the pressure, like you said, like maybe I'll expand on what I create in the furniture world, maybe not.
It's still TBD, you know, like I still obviously have that relationship with my friend when we like to build things, but some things aren't necessarily meant to be built upon. Some things are just a moment and I'm okay with that.
For the music too, when I was binging all your, like anything I could find, all your interviews and stuff, you said you had a beat in your head.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just needed to like figure out how to get it out. And I
Yeah.
like microdosed for 2 weeks
Yeah.
and did it. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, like I need to like,
Yeah.
first of all, I'm curious to know like if you have a lot of experience, let's say microdosing or any type of like psychedelic and how that's like really tapped into your creativity.
Well, how that happened is I've been like at this point where when that moment happened, I was like already in music as far as like had worked with an artist.
Okay.
And like we had already parted ways. But I was just at Coachella and this just sounds so cliche, but I was at Coachella and I was on mushrooms and we were leaving, I was in like a bus and we were leaving the grounds and we had already been like 45 minutes like on our journey back to the hotel. And it was dead quiet on the bus. I realized it was dead quiet on the bus, but in my head, I was still like in front of the stage. Like I was making a whole like deep house music in my head, and I was like, holy shit, this is sick. Like I was really enjoying it. And when I got home, I like just microdosed for 2 weeks and like taught myself like just like the essentials on Logic. And just like from being in studio sessions and stuff and understanding like song structure, I was able to teach myself like music theory and just kind of just dive in. It was almost like I would equate it to like how some people take like a Ritalin, like you're able to just kind of like lock in on said task. I was able to like have a similar approach where it's not like I'm like hallucinating at the computer like some wizard or anything, but like, you know, I definitely was using mushrooms intentionally to like learn this subject, and it helped me. I feel like it helped me, and I think it was just kind of natural for me to do it because that's where I in that state of mind when I was under the influence of mushrooms, like that's where that passion came from me. So I just wanted to like continue that journey.
Yeah, it's cool. I feel like I've said this before. I feel like the moments where you like wake up or like right when you're going to bed, when you're kind of like unconscious a little bit, you can get like really good ideas.
For sure.
And I've had times where like I hear like a beat or whatever, but I have no idea how to like, first of all, remember it and then like translate it. So it's like, it's just really cool that you were actually like, no, I need to figure this out.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I make beats and like I don't share them. I only share them with like my closest homies just for the humor. And it's funny because a lot of the music I make and the beats and stuff I make, like people would probably assume that like they're like all hip hop and shit, but they're like dubstep, fucking bass and drum, like shit that I barely even listen to or honestly don't. But it's just what comes out when I get in front of the computer and what excites me the most. I can't really explain it. It's, it's probably not the best, but it's enough for me to just get out my head.
That's interesting. Do you feel like you still have to like microdose a little bit just to like get right there? Now that you've like experienced it, like, oh, I know where it is in my head.
No, I know how to use like the programs and the tools now. So it's like, I've been doing this for like a little while now. Like I've been doing it since like probably like 2018. So I know how to use like the tools. I'm familiar with them. So like now it's like, it'll be like Saturday morning, I'll smoke a joint. I have nothing to do for 5 hours and I'll pull out like my MIDI keyboard and like just mess around. Maybe I share it with somebody and maybe I don't, but for me, it's more about the exercise.
It's interesting because you're somebody that like takes so much, like monetizes so much of his creativity, but you still have like a hobby.
There's a lot of my creative that I don't monetize. Like
okay.
I actually have more than I show and share.
Okay.
Like for example, when COVID was going on, I just made necklaces. Like I just felt like making necklaces, expressing how I feel. So you know how like a lot of like girls wear like the cursive like name necklaces. So my roommate and I, he picked the word, I picked the word, and like my homie makes fine jewelry. So we just had to make, gold versions of these necklaces, but one said tired and one said hope. And we made like 15 of them and we were gonna sell them, but I'm a firm believer that you don't necessarily, and you shouldn't necessarily sell everything you make. So we just started just giving them out to the homies. And now it's like, now just people have like, our close friends just have like these little mementos of like these tough times that like the world was a tough time, So yeah, there's a lot that I've made, like full clothing brands that I just wear that like I don't sell or market or promote or even create content for. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I'd rather just wear my own shit because it's like what I thought of.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes people won't even pursue like a passion, creative interest because like they don't see how they could get to the point where they can monetize it.
Yeah.
I don't know when hobbies like went extinct.
Yeah.
But like
Totally.
Yeah, so it's like nice to see somebody who like is successful in the creative space but just has a bunch of things that they like to do for their own nourishment. Doesn't always need to be a full out business.
Totally. I think I'm almost at the point where it's like I have too many and I need to actually decide, am I going to make this a business or not? Because otherwise I'm just like spewing money towards things that are probably better off in my pocket, know? But it's cool to get ideas out of your head. And that's what I live for.
Yeah. That's the thing too, like when you are starting these creative processes, like as opposed to like just getting a job, getting paid day one, you're outputting a lot of money to make them get to a certain level where you can even be positioned to sell.
Well, yeah, I think in order to be I mean, if you're like an actual artist, like you're more than just making art and collecting money. Like it's a business. You become a business, and like, with that comes a whole nother realm of trials and tribulations, especially if you don't come from like a business mindset.
Yeah. Are there like certain systems you put into place where you're like, okay, like through my experience, like this is what I'm going to implement to make sure I could actually be running, I don't know how many businesses you're running now, but like a multiple at the same time.
Teams, it depends. Like when I approach an idea, is this a team idea or is this a Dolo Will side mission, And if it is this one I'm going to monetize? Because if it's one I'm going to monetize, like it's going to cost me at least $3,000 or $4,000 to own the IP, because I'm not going to like ever put out anything where I don't own the IP again. So just off, getting trademarks, setting everything up, multiple trademarks if the name is good enough and like that's what the vision is. It's like you're spending bread. If it's just like, all right, I just want to make this hypothetical brand that I'm actually liking, put it on a t-shirt, some sweatpants or whatever, then do I really need to get all the IP if I'm not even going to sell it? Maybe not. Maybe I spend that $1,000 on just making dope clothes because I want to wear them and they look tight versus like making a business out of it. It's like kind of understanding what I'm doing.
Can you like dive a little bit deeper into IP?
Yeah.
Because even I was speaking to somebody about creating a podcast and they were talking about owning the IP and all that like it went over my head. I'm like, well, I've been doing it. What do you mean? Like, do I need to own an IP? Like,
Definitely.
What is that concept?
I've been taken advantage of pretty wildly with IP. I've had some really strong IP before, and like literally the most powerful people in the world have came in and took it away, and I was just there like, sitting on my hands and knowing that like, even if I could afford to sue them, I probably would lose just because of the resources that they have, or literally like, you're fighting billionaires. Like it's not really, you have to choose when to fight and when not to fight. And unfortunately, like, that was not a fight that I was gonna win. So I basically just like lost all my IP that I had worked on. It was a clothing brand, and you know, I learned from that lesson to never give up your IP, simply. But first off, you have to own it, you know. So I did the right thing about owning it, but then I gave it away too loosely. So
Okay.
it's important to, you know, if you're gonna do something, you know, own the IP, and that's what actually makes what you're doing more valuable, right? Like if you own, you know, the media trademark, I don't know what trademark it would be, but for your name of your podcast or the name of your movie or the script of your movie, it only adds value to what you're doing. Automatically, it's like 10xing your value. Like if you have a clothing brand and you want to get into like a Zoomies or something, or a, you know, whatever big box store, Urban Outfitters, and like you don't have the IP, like of course you're gonna do it, but you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because then Joe Schmo who did nothing can just walk in, get the IP, and now he's charging you because you're using his name.
That's crazy.
So it's like you just have to lay a good foundation if you're planning to build.
When you say IP is like the top of the list trademark, or are there other things that are like the top?
It depends on what you're developing. You know, you could do patents, but like, is it worth a patent? Like, is what you're doing really that groundbreaking? If it's just a t-shirt, no, just get the trademark, you know. If it's something that hasn't been done before, it's probably just a trademark. But if it's something that the world has never seen, like a new iPhone or fucking, you know, contact lenses that could call somebody, like, then you need patents and stuff. But it really does depend on what you're building.
Okay. And then you also mentioned NFTs, which is like, you know a lot more than I do. I want to talk about your project, Weather Report, but also like the industry as a whole, because I feel like people that were even outside of it, there were the people that were like really in it, like right when it started, which for me, like you were one of those people.
Totally.
And then the people like, let's say me, where I was like, oh, like kind of interested, looking into it a little bit. I bought one NFT.
Totally.
But then it seemed like it just went silent.
Totally. Crypto is a very interesting industry, whether it be NFTs or not. It just moves very fast. There's a lot of cycles, right? And they could come and go. And with that comes hype. And every time there's a new bull run or cycle, there's usually something new that's being hyped. For us and our project, you know, it's been turbulent but good. You know, there's a lot of controversy around our project. However, you know, we've just kind of put our head down and continued to build. You know, in the last year, we threw a festival with over like 5,000 people attending. We had like Ray Stremmer, you know, Sway Lee, YG, Soulja Boy, some good DJs like Selection. We had them come out and just kind of like really want to bridge the gap between IRL or like reality and like this digital world. And that's what we're kind of doing with the vehicle that is Weather Report. And now mainly focusing on pivoting into a full-on clothing brand with like wholesale distribution at, you know, hundreds of retailers.
What's the slogan for Weather?
Rain or shine, right here.
Okay, there's something you had that had to do with healing.
Online healing.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's that about?
We use our shirts as a canvas to express ourselves and to express just emotion. We feel that, you know, that is a very strong pillar of our brand, and that's just something that we do within our like design mantra.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I was like, I feel like there's a deeper meaning that maybe I just like didn't find or whatever, but
I think that's kind of like what we like to do. It's like a cliffhanger, you know. It's like you could feel a part of something by owning a shirt like that. You know, you're spreading a message that is positive. It's like, you know, online healing. What does it mean? Like, I don't know, but it sounds like we all need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's it's kind of just like, you know, up to interpretation. But we like to express and use clothing as a canvas for expression.
Okay. But even what are they called? Like, so yeah, like now it's been a while. It's been like a year that I like stopped even looking into it. But like the like characters, because you have like really cute characters, like the design is really good too. So was that like a project where it was like 10,000?
Yeah, we did like a project of like 10,000.
Okay. And so that's still going?
Yeah, I mean, they're on blockchain, so it's like forever, right? Like that's kind of what it's about. But that was just a part of our ecosystem. Like that character set is a component of a larger ecosystem that we intend to build and have from the beginning. Even like our approach to when we launched Weather Report, like everyone at the time was just doing digital graphics, doing digital marketing, and doing for a digital ecosystem. And to me, that made no sense. Like, I want people to feel this, see it, be curious in real life. So before we even sold anything digital, we shot it like a clothing brand lookbook, like to appeal to, you know, reality and really start to, you know, connect those dots between the two worlds. And, you know, our roots and our history come from the fashion world. Like, I worked at Stussy for 5 years, and my partner Zach, he's, you know, been a graphic designer for 10 plus years. So we just kind of went back to our roots and applied what we enjoy to like this very digitally native world. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. We're not done yet. We're just getting started. You know, I think in the space, you know, a lot of people want instant gratification and the price just to go up. But reality is, like, outside of that world, if you're, you know, building an ecosystem that is bigger than that, like fashion calendars have different cycles than the NFT calendars. You know, in the NFT space, a week could feel like a month. And in the fashion calendar, you know, a buyer's only going to buy 4 times a year: spring, summer, you know, fall, winter. And like, that's basically it. You know, the schedules are completely different. But I think continuing to blend the two worlds and do it at a pace that is comfortable for us and sustainable for us is our pathway forward.
Yeah, so I feel like the whole money making thing is really what got people interested in the first place. They just saw all these people making so much money. Well, some people that were like not really into that world and were like, oh, is this an avenue I could go and like become rich overnight type of thing?
Yeah.
And that had like a little moment where it was happening for people. But like, where do you think it is now? Like,
It's hard to say. It's impossible to say. You know,
Yeah.
no one knows what the price of anything's going to be tomorrow, but there definitely is a lot of factors at play within NFTs and in crypto, right? Like NFTs are directly correlated to the blockchain that they're on, so the currency that they're on, which then is correlated to right now, like what's going on in our economy as a macro. Like, you know, we're not in a recession technically, but like a lot of people believe that we are, and there's different industries moving and kind of like falling at different times. Like dominoes are kind of falling, like the banking industry is falling, which then affects how, you know, the Federal Reserve's rates and how much they're hiking interest rates, which then, you know, limits the amount of capital that gets deployed into, you know, cryptocurrency, and then rules and regulations on how even cryptocurrency is viewed. Is it a commodity? Is it a security? Like, all these things are still unfolding. It's such a wild west of a space that, you know, anything is possible. And as insane, as crazy, as fast moving as it is, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I do. It's toxic. It's amazing, and I love it. Like, you know, it's not the healthiest of places.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could find a pace for sure.
Do you put it within the category of Web3?
Yeah.
Okay. Because, yeah, when we were first supposed to do this, like, I guess like a year ago or something, my question was like, what is Web3?
I think Web3 is leveraging blockchain technology to create tools and resources. I feel like that's what Web3 is. But it's also like the community aspect of it too, with the community aspect.
Like, when you think about like what you really fuck with in that space, is it that? Is it like the community? Is it like the ability? Like, is it the art angle?
It's the technology.
Okay.
It's the technology itself. Like, the whole reason why I got into NFTs is because I was looking at my hard drive and I was like, this house can burn right now, and there goes my finest, favorite, best work. And like, now it's just gonna live forever on the internet, you know? So that's what excited me the most.
One of the things you said, and I'm like referencing these other interviews, but it was really interesting where you said, like, we could potentially get to a place where it's earn to live. Am I saying it right? Earn to live?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's like, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to hear more about what you think of that and like how that could be possible.
It could be possible, but it all really does come down to how it is regulated, because and how cryptocurrency is viewed. Like, you can't necessarily just hand out securities to everybody. There's legal, ramifications of that. So the concept of earn to live is to basically compensate people for how they spend their time. Like, if you run, now Nike's paying you because you're using Nike shoes in their app to run in a cryptocurrency. Like, it's a great concept, but I don't know how feasible, if the regulators are going to allow it to happen, because it just is, it's such a uncharted territory. It's like a complete different mindset for society. Like, I don't quite know if the powers that be would necessarily want that to happen or will allow it to happen.
Yeah.
It's bigger than, I feel like, us or like the end consumer at this point.
Yeah, that was another thing too, whereas like the difference between Web 2 and Web 3, like there's a ton of people that have been making their income in Web 2 and kind of feeling, once they saw everything going on with NFTs, they're like, okay, so there's a future that's like here.
Yeah.
And like, I probably need to evolve and learn how to tap in if I want to continue to grow in the digital space.
Totally. How could someone that is basically fully Web 2 get involved in Web 3 to help better themselves?
Yeah, like to stay competitive. Like,
yeah, I think the first step is just basically understanding what the technology is and why it's important, and then really just keeping it really light. Never invest more than you're willing to lose, because literally you could go on vacation in Hawaii, let's say, for the weekend, come back and whatever you had invested is at zero. So don't invest any more than you're willing to lose, number one. Number two is understand what you're investing in. Like, definitely do your research on the technology. Bitcoin is like the grandfather of everything. Understand why that is so and why everything else is not it. Yeah, I think that is pretty important. And just like a proven strategy to overcome anything, and it is essentially just dollar cost averaging. This is not financial advice, but putting away a little bit into that, like if it's $5 a week, whatever you can afford to lose, essentially, just put it there, and over time it'll accumulate and grow. Don't look at the price. The price at any moment could fluctuate 70%, so it's completely irrational. However, I do think it's the future, and those are like the worst case scenarios. But like, yeah, I think it's just gonna get stronger over time.
When you think of Web3, it's more so, and people want to get involved, do you think more so from like an investment standpoint?
I think so, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone wants, right? Everyone wants price to go up. Everyone wants their value to go up, whether it be in an exchange for time, or in exchange for their art, or in exchange for giving $1 and buying Bitcoin. At the end of the day, everyone wants the same thing, and that's more capital.
Yeah.
Like, simply.
I was just learning, and I feel like I'm like late to the game, but I was just learning about Chat GPT.
Yeah.
So just like kind of introducing myself to the concept of like AI and connecting that to creativity.
Yeah.
And there was also this talk I was supposed to go to last week, and it was like AI and like poetry, and it made me like kind of sad. And I feel like there are many moments like as human beings where we like see the progression of technology. Sometimes you're really excited. Sometimes you feel like, I'm like, oh, it's like sad. Like I would be sad if it wasn't just human beings creating poetry anymore.
I mean, this is a super hot take that probably people are gonna look at me like I'm a weirdo for, but I basically believe that like humans' whole purpose on being on planet Earth is to create AI, to create our predecessor. It's like the next evolution. AI is already ChatGPT 4, and what they're already doing is creating hardware to like basically put that into. Like that thing is smarter than any human being and more capable. So it's like, where is it going to be in 10 years? Like it's growing at like an infinite rate, and it's definitely going to like surpass us in every way, shape, or form. So I don't think there's really a need to like live in fear of that. Like, it's just, for whatever reason, right, humans have always wanted to advance technology, but now we're at a pivotal point where the technology that we've created is actually smarter than us. And so now things are going to change. I don't know what it's going to be like. It could be terrible, or it could be a great utopia, but it's definitely going to change. But I do think like damn near like humans purpose on this planet was to create AI.
It's crazy you say that, because one of my questions was going to be like, well, basically, like, my thought is like, don't you feel threatened of it a little bit, like, as a creative?
No.
Or you're like, it's just solely a tool, you're completely on board?
I mean, anything that, like, of course, like AI can take a photo of a palm tree, but like, so can I. Like, I'm not really tripping. Like, I'm just gonna leverage it I feel like it was cool having Google in your pocket, but like having something like a ChatGPT 4 in your pocket is a lot. Like, you have everything. Like, you could bust out a document from a lawyer. You could, like, pretty soon you'll be able to have, like, I don't know, like, let's say you have a compound fracture, you could take a photo of it and understand like what is actually going on, and it'll tell you what's going on. It could replace, like, imagine WebMD on like just a click of away of a phone. Like, I don't know, it's going to empower a lot of people before it destroys us, I think. And yeah, don't definitely want to be there when it probably starts to turn the other corner, but by then, hopefully.
Yeah, we might just miss it.
Yeah, I might just miss it. It's not going to be my problem.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question that I always ask is, if there's something that you can permanently break the mold on, what would it be?
I would like to permanently break the mold on the perception of, I think, what success means. I think everyone has a different sense of success. I feel like success is very personal. Some people, it is just being the best version of themselves. Some people, it is just, they have a straight monetary like figure attached to it. I think finding my own personal success and understanding that is like a lifelong journey for me. It's somewhere in between it all. But I think breaking the mold on what that means, I think, is something I would like to strive to do.
Where do you think it stands right now? Like, if we were to say, like, kind of the most common interpretation, like, I think it was really seeped into monetary and material for a long time.
Yeah.
And like, people, like, humanity as a whole is kind of fighting that right now.
You think you said it for me. I want to continue to shine the light on the side that it's not just all about money. I think impact is super important. I think you could have all the money in the world, but if you're not affecting people in a positive way, it's pointless.
That's a great way to end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. No, thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much.